Good morning, dear students. I'm happy to see you all today. And as you know, today we are going to have a business breakfast with Hikmat Abdurahmanov, one of the co-founders of our university, one of the founders. And he will tell us more about his entrepreneurial journey today, and you will be able to ask questions later. So please, let's welcome. Thank you, guys. So, dear Hikmat Abdurahmanovich.
Just let's make it shorter. Just Hikmat or Hikmat, whichever you want.
Hikmat, yeah. Okay. Thank you. So my first question to you: could you please tell us more about the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey? Because our students are quite young and they are at their start, so they are interested how you started. And
yeah. Well, thank you very much for this nice event. I hope our students will be feeling less formal, more, let's say, interactive, and not shy to ask questions, because this is an informal meeting, right? This is an informal discussion, and I hope everyone is comfortable with English, yeah? You're comfortable with English, right? Yes. So, speaking about entrepreneurship as a journey, I have to say that it was not my dream. It was never something that I dreamed of when I was in my, I don't know, childhood and early professional career. I never considered entrepreneurship to be my lifelong journey. I was dreaming of becoming a person who would work for the government. That's more or less standard goals or aspirations of young people at that period of time. Later on, when I discovered that at the government position, they don't pay you well, they just give you some, very small amounts of money, I realized that I need to have some earnings. I need to have some sources of income. So for me, entrepreneurship was something through which I made money. And I remember my first business, it was, I don't know, maybe I was 15, 16 years old when I decided that I don't want to depend on my parents. I was doing a few projects. My first, more or less, business project was with my classmate. We were in the class of 10, so I was 14 years old because I went to school when I was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So around 14, 15 years old, I realized that I need to, have some sources of income. And one of my classmates said, there is a warehouse where they sell kitchenware, where they sell stuff that you can use for the household things, including sewage, including the porcelain, including everything that you need for the bathrooms. And he was very shy. He used to speak only Uzbek, and Russian language was a language of communication, more or less, if you want to talk to someone, etc. And I was perfect in Russian because I went to school, and my first language of, let's say, when I was 6 years old, I didn't know Uzbek. I would speak only Russian. And then I was taken to an Uzbek school where I learned Uzbek language. So what I want to say, knowing languages was really critical for my, let's say, success. And I said to him, okay, your job is going to be to bring that products. My job is going to be to sell those products. So that was the initial partnership we had. I was 14, 15 years old, and we would go to the market. He would stand there with the products, and I would talk to the sellers and say, would you like to buy what we have? And those would be cables, those would be porcelain, kitchenware, and everything else. So his job was to bring those products. My job was to convince sellers to purchase our products. And normally it would take 1 week or 2 weeks for them to return us the money. Then we would go and speak to the shop owners. And again, imagine how old are you guys, by the way, on average? 20, 19, yeah, something. So I was 16 or 15 years old, not 16, 15 years old, because at the age of 16, I was already a university student. So just for your understanding. So that means that I was actually 14, 15, because I was in the class of 10 approximately. That was the initial feeling that I had, that I can make money. If I'm more or less confident, if I can go to people and suggest them to buy something, and I have to say that I'm a typical introvert. Do you know what introvert means? Yeah, the person who is not very talkative, the person who is pretty much shy. But at that moment, I decided that if his job is to bring the products, at least I have to do something. I have to add value. So because I didn't have information about the product, etc., so my job was to convince the buyers to buy. That was my initial, let's say, understanding of the business.
Thank you very much. So as far as I understand, you had to get out of your comfort zone,
yes,
right, in order to interact with the customers and sell products. So the start is about going out of the comfort zone, if I understand correctly. So my second question is about your current project. How many projects do you have? What kind of projects are these?
Yeah. So why I decided to share the story, Elena, because there is so much knowledge and wisdom on the internet. Yeah, you can read a lot of interesting ideas. What I think is important is to really share personal stories, so people can relate to themselves. And it is important that people understand that it is not about just the knowledge. Knowledge is great, but you need to hear individual stories. So again, going back to my projects now, currently this is one of the biggest projects I have, university. I always dreamed, not always dreamed, but for the last 5 years I dreamed that I will have some big ambitious project where it's going to be impactful. It's not only about money. Obviously making profit is important, who doesn't want to have profit? Everyone wants to make money. But when you are at the age of almost 40, that's when the university started, now I'm 43, so you start thinking about something that impacts something else beside your own family. Besides university, we have a chain of co-working spaces, Ground Zero. Have you heard about co-working as a concept? Yeah. How many of you have been to Ground Zero, by the way? None of you. Just one, two. Okay, good. So some of you already had a feeling of what kind of business that is. So normally I'm interested in something that doesn't exist in Uzbekistan. So I want to do something which is not yet here. And because my major, my background is international business, I always felt that my mission is to bring something to Uzbekistan that doesn't exist yet or is not very popular. We also have leasing companies. You know what leasing is? No? Yeah, so some of you know, when you lend money. So you take money from somewhere else, let's say from the banks or from some big financial corporations, and then you lend that money to those who need the money. So these are two groups of people. One is business people who need financing to buy equipment, for example, to buy machinery, some construction machinery for their business needs. And the second group of people are those who need automobile for themselves, a car. So if you want to buy, let's say, Captiva, or you want to buy some electric car, some imported car, you can come to us and receive 50-60% of the money within few days, like within a couple of days. That's the business model. So we lend money ourselves from someone, and then we finance those business projects. So right now I have much less businesses than I used to have. If you ask Hikmat 5 years ago, 7 years ago, how many businesses he has, he would say around 10. And that's another interesting story about focus. In like 10 years ago, it would be very normal to have different type of businesses where you are the co-founder. So now things are changing because now you need to focus. Otherwise, competitors are gonna, break you because they have focus. If someone is focusing on one business and you are focusing on 10, what can happen to you? You will not have enough time, allocate proper resources to compete with them and understand the situation in the market on a daily basis.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So as far as I understand, back in the days you were like a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? Do you guys remember? We just covered this topic this week, types of entrepreneurs. So, and can you say that you transformed from serial entrepreneur to another type?
Yes, I am transforming back to become a normal guy. Because being a serial entrepreneur is something very, very tough, because you need to build a business model where businesses operate without your immediate intervention every day. So I remember times when we had up to 15 businesses, and my job was to speak to individual CEOs or directors in each division, inspire them, talk to them, receive their reports on a weekly or monthly basis, and make decisions that would keep them competitive. So at the time of, let's say, I can call that period a time of stagnation in Uzbekistan, where you had to survive. I don't know how you can relate to this or not, but back in the days, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the security of your company was a big issue. Do you understand what I mean? Like keeping your company alive, and you would go through different scrutinies from the state tax office or some other organizations that would really watch that you don't become too big, or some other reasons they had in mind. Sometimes we don't understand. That was a big issue. So putting your eggs into different baskets, as they say, was very important. Gladly now you don't have to do that anymore. I mean, relatively. So now you can focus. And there was no such fierce competition from outside. Now if you go to different business sectors, yeah, you would see that in each sector you have foreign competition. Let's say Uzum as a business, yeah, you all know Uzum. Uzum is like a joint venture. If you look into the structure of the people who work there, mostly they come from international companies, mostly Russian and some not Russian, yeah. And if you are building a fintech company, let's say, you need to compete with those minds that come from different markets. Last week I met with the leader of TBC Bank. You know TBC, yeah? That's as they call first digital bank in Uzbekistan. That's a Georgian company, and they are listed company. Do you know what listed means? Listed means that they went to the IPO. You know what IPO is? Yeah, you collect money from the market through the stock exchange. So the biggest companies in the world, they are public companies. So TBC is a public company. Yeah, anyone sitting here can buy their shares. So that means that they are very, very global in their mindset. So nowadays, if you're working in the retail, you have some international players working, competing with you. If you are a developing company, yeah, like a construction company, you have Kazakh, I don't know, some Russian or some Arab or Chinese capital. So nowadays, you need to compete with international players. That not used to be the case 10 years ago.
So to which kind of entrepreneur you would relate yourself right now?
Now I am less entrepreneur, I am more top manager. So now I wear two hats. As a CEO of this organization, of the university, my job is to come here every day and make sure that this organization operates efficiently. That is not entrepreneurial job. I mean, I can have entrepreneurial mindset, and that helps me a lot, that I had entrepreneurial background. So when I speak to people, when I speak to students, I have few students who came to me, yeah, who are sitting here, and said, Hikmat, can we establish such and such project? And I have business background, and I understand what they want to do. If they would go to a state university's rector, let's say, and talk to that guy, most probably they would receive different type of answer. That would be more bureaucratic answer. It's not necessarily bad answer, but it's a different answer. So as a CEO of this organization, I use my entrepreneurial mindset to launch new projects together with the team, obviously, to be flexible, to be competitive, to be different beast, as they say, to be a different player in the market. That is what I enjoy, because I use my entrepreneurial background, and I still am an employed person in this position. Of course, I'm also one of the co-founders of this university. That makes me an entrepreneur as well. So what I'm responding to your question, I have to wear two hats.
Okay, thank you very much. And I also want to come back to our topic of impact. You mentioned that you want to create some kind of impact, not only to generate profit, right? So I guess Team University is creating impact in the sphere of education.
Yeah.
So if we relate, if we talk about UN's SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, so what kind of impact you are creating, you are having?
Yeah, so again, I will go back to some stories, because that previous experiences, they shape us and shape our views, right? 7 years ago, I was actually, so again, you remember I said that I never dreamed to become an entrepreneur. I thought, well, I think I will be an ambassador of Uzbekistan to some country, or I will do something else, you know, to be in some statesman's job. Then I immediately realized that that's not the case. I have to be a corrupt guy, because I need to make money to sustain my family, and that's not gonna work. I don't want to be in that unethical position. So, but through years, I still had that feeling that probably I got my education not just to be, you know, rich guy, or I don't know, successful business person. Later on, I met some mentors, I met some people who described that anyone in life need to have a purpose. So we come to this life with some specific purpose. That is your job, to define which purpose you have. Yeah. So someone says, I want to create a charity organization, like a charity fund. I want to take care of people with cancer. Okay, wonderful. Someone says, I want to build a retail business, yeah, a retail empire that would bring not just bread, but other fresh products to the farthest points of Uzbekistan. Yeah, maybe Zafarika has such dream. Yeah, Zafar Hashimov, because we spoke to him last week, and he currently has, you know how many stores he have in Karzinka? Just guess. 50, 60? Other guesses? Yeah, so he currently has 152 stores. So you know how many he wants to have in coming 5 years? Exactly. Yeah. Maybe that was a wild guess, but that's true. So by 2029, they want to have 1,000 stores in Uzbekistan. So I think in a bigger picture, I mean, obviously he wants to have a profitable company, but it's much more than that. So he wants, I think, my guess is that he wants to cover the whole country with the opportunity to buy fresh products every day with affordable prices. At least that would be my goal if I'm the founder of a retail chain. So for me, through my personal journey, I saw that education changes you. When you have, let's say, a mediocre level of education, your views on the world and everything else is on that level. If you are lucky to have best professors in your life who traveled around the world, who have, you know, world knowledge, you start thinking that, wow, that's where I want to be. And I was lucky enough to be in the chair of a student in different parts of the world. Yeah, I was studying not just in Uzbekistan, in UK, in US, and in Turkey, I don't know. I did dozens of fellowships. I did dozens of educational programs around the world. And every time I came back, I felt that my life is different, because now I know something that I didn't know before. So going back to your question, to the question of impact, I felt that Uzbekistan will definitely benefit from entrepreneurship institution, like institution where entrepreneurs are given world-class knowledge, yeah? Not just because it's with, let's say, some successful business people, but again, why you study mostly in English? Because we believe that world knowledge is available in English language. You can access people you can speak to people with different backgrounds if you know English language. I'll just give you one example and will stop there. Last year we had, have you seen, there was a group of MBA students from Harvard Business School. So they came here and they spoke to our students. I think that was somewhere in August. No, that was, yeah, maybe around August. Okay, doesn't matter. So we had a group of Harvard students, Harvard MBA students, who came here and spoke to our students, and we invited everybody else from the community. That is a demonstration how students of Team University can connect to different minds of, you know, Harvard. Then we had Tufts University, it's another great university, who came here. Students from that university came here. So through educational project, I realized that young kids, boys and girls, sitting here, studying here, can change their lives. Yeah, that's a bit maybe idealistic, but that's what I believe in.
Thank you, Hikmat. And my, I think, last question will be about your management style, maybe, how you manage the people, and do you allow people in your projects to, you know, be creative, you give them freedom to create, to bring innovation, and maybe to be a bit independent?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. Why? Because that's the question I ask myself all the time. One thing that I realized that the style of management depends on the sector, like on what we are discussing. If we are talking about educational institution, art studio, I don't know, design studio, something that is creative in nature, yeah, you need to unite creative people. That means that in that environment, being autocratic will just destroy everything. So, being the CEO at this organization, I am at some point rediscovering my own style of management. Because I realized that if you invite people who are academicians, who are research oriented, or who communicate with young generation, or they are independent in their own nature, because how can you become a PhD student or a master student or a professor without being independent? How can you create your own curriculums? How can you, excel if you are not self-sufficient and independent? So I believe that one factor that influences the way of management that you need to bring is the business sector, the environment in which you are working. Or let's say if you are working with artists, yeah, you are working with people who are related to theaters, museums, art studios. Again, they have to be independent and individualistic because they are creating some piece of art through their own understanding. So they don't have to fear anyone. They have to be brave. They have to be very open-minded. On the other side, if you're working at some industrial conveyor, you can imagine that you are producing, I don't know, diapers, yeah, or whatever, like something that is very typical, and you are producing thousands and thousands of something very standard. How creative can you be there? It's really tough to be creative there. You need to just follow some business procedures. You need to follow some standards, and there's a process, and it's very, predictable in a way.
But there's still some room for improvement,
innovation? Yeah, of course. But again, I'm not saying that you have to be a dictator there, but still you need to follow certain procedures. When you talk to the management of such organization, of course you can ask open questions saying, okay, we are producing 10,000 diapers a day. How can we produce 12,000 diapers? What can we do to improve? Yeah? And then you can collect some opinions, obviously. But overall, the sector where you operate influences the way how you manage people. On the other hand, I definitely believe that in an open society, like in a democratic country, one, in general, in principle, should be more democratic than, let's say, if you are working in North Korea, you know where North Korea is, yeah? Or Iran, let's say, again, Turkmenistan, in a way, yeah? So these are the societies which are much more closed, and in those societies there's a very standard hierarchy and everything else. Sometimes in Uzbekistan we see the same, especially in the regions when you have some hakims shouting on people. I am really scared of what's happening there. So in a way we all have to try being more liberal and more democratic, yeah? But there is also a sector influence. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hikmat. So right now I guess we're going to have our coffee break, where you will be able to...
Maybe there are a few questions that we can ask and then go to the coffee break, because then I have, yeah.
Yeah, it's an option. Actually, we can have a Q&A session right now and then have a coffee break,
Yeah.
or vice versa. I guess the first option is better, right?
So the thing
better?
is that I then have to be running, so maybe we can receive, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 questions.
Okay.
And then, because I have a few meetings going on,
Sure.
what do you think?
Of course,
Yeah?
yes. So,
Okay, good that we have already some hands ready.
Assalamu alaikum. My negative question is about fails. When you did have a period which included serial fails in your life journey, if you did, and which factors helped to find a way in these situations?
So that's a good question, and the failures, or let's call them lessons, yeah, because I think I'll give you one example just to describe why failures are so important in life. But before that, I will answer to your question. So I had some cycles, like, you know, going up and down, and and there were many of them. Like I'll just probably give you a couple to show that, again, this is a cycle. They can always come back. I mean, those crisis moments. The recent one was in 2020, when there was a lockdown. You all remember that we had challenging times. We had a business that was linked to trading operations. So we used to bring equipment, machinery, and sell them in big numbers. We mostly brought them from China, but not only from China. So we used to be the leading supplier of auto cranes, dump trucks, forklifts, and many other words probably that you don't even know. But those describe big machines. Yeah, you know, auto cranes and excavators, yeah, those big machines. We used to sell them in big numbers. So we had a moment when, because of the lockdown, they were stuck. We couldn't sell them. Some of them were stuck in the customs office. You know what customs, right? I mean, in the official border line of Uzbekistan. Some were stuck there. Some were here in our showroom, in the warehouse. So at the peak moment, we had approximately almost $5 or $6 million in stock, like that were not selling because of the problems with the lockdown. When our customers could not come here, we could not reach out to them, and that created a big problem because we used to lend money. You know what lending money is like. We didn't have $6 million in our own pockets. We would lend some money and we would pay an interest rate. So at that peak moment, we could not afford to keep that stock anymore, and we had to do the sales, like, you know, распродажа, as they say, just to get rid of that equipment. And that moment I realized that something has to change, because I was not able, going back to the topic of serial entrepreneurship, control everything in each of my businesses. And at that moment I already was very much interested in university project. So obviously we worked on that, and yeah, one very important moment. Not all of my partners wanted to stay in that business. So a couple of my partners decided to leave the business. And it was 4 of us, 2 of us stayed, 2 of us left. And all the big problem was just on our shoulders. But we didn't have that luxury of leaving, because someone had to complete that, someone had to finish that, even if it was unpleasant. So it took us 3 years to get rid of that stock, to pay back to all the companies, suppliers, and to kind of write off some debt, to sell that equipment, to keep the team, to do everything, to clean up the mess, as they say. So that was a very challenging moment, yeah, in my life. But again, because I mean, probably one thing that you will learn, guys, studying here and then doing your own projects, is the word that is called resilience. Do you know what resilience means? Resilience is the skill that you build, that you never kind of give up, yeah? You learn how not to give up. And sometimes, and especially if you talk to the kids, yeah, when to the children, it's few minutes, it's few hours that they're not giving up, but then in a day or two they will give up because they don't have the skill to be resilient for a long time. But once you grow up, you need to learn how to be resilient, not for a few months or a few weeks. You have to be resilient enough to keep the problem and work with it for years. And that's what I learned in entrepreneurship, that if you want to build some impactful project, you need to be able to keep the focus and be resilient for years. And that was the biggest time when I had to be resilient, and obviously it was not just me, with my partner, and to keep them, to motivate the whole team. At the same time, developed another big project, which is the university. At the same time, resolve and solve all your problems that you have. That was the biggest moment, the recent moment, let's say. And again, going back to that exercise, I would advise to you, make the chart and put time on one side, on one axis, and then moments of happiness on the second, like the highest point and the lowest point. Draw the line and just spend half an hour of your time and identify those dots where you had the happiest moment and the worst moments in your life. And one thing that you will discover, interestingly, that the happiest moments you had in your life would be as a result of the lowest moments in your life. That's really paradoxical, yeah? Like it doesn't sound intuitively right, but I will assure you that's what's gonna happen to you. You will see that the happiest moments in your life came as a result of the most dramatic times in your life. That's what I at least discovered in dozens of entrepreneurs when we had that exercise.
I guess it comes with experience,
yeah.
So our students will definitely see it in their future life. Thank you very much for the question. Who else wants to ask?
I think we had another hand
Yana?
over there, yes.
Please.
Thank you, hello, and my name is Yana, and I have a little question. Is the university interested in foreign students from different countries, and how do you plan to attract them? I ask that because I'm a foreign student by myself. I came from Moscow, and I found a team from Instagram social media. Thank you.
Okay, I need my marketing people to hear that. Okay, one guy is there, so yeah. That's a very good question. So international partnerships are built in two ways. We can attract foreign students, or we can send our students to other countries. And I want our students to hear that, because that's something that has not been yet announced, but very soon it's going to be announced. Yes, we definitely want to increase the number of international partnerships. Last year, each year we get some international students. And our initial team that started this project, and you know many of them, is Alan France and the whole team who came from Westminster University. Maybe you didn't know, but the initial cohort of faculty members and professors came from a Westminster University to launch this university. So they had a big experience, already 20 years of experience of working in Uzbekistan. So they would say, that attracting international students is not easy because you need to go to exhibitions, you need to go to some international educational fairs and promote yourself, yeah? But again, one thing that never existed before is Instagram and social media. And it's interesting that you mentioned that you learned about us through Instagram. So that's a very good message. Yes, this year we have students from Kyrgyzstan, from Russia. Previously we had students from South Korea, from Tajikistan and a few other countries. For sure we want to create more. But right now, what will change the situation for the better is that we are discussing this with 4 institutions already, just this year, with a Kazakh university, South Korean university, we already made an agreement. We have 1 French business school, and we have 1 Latvian business school, university, that is willing to establish partnerships with us. What will give that to you, to the students, is an opportunity, and we have this with LSBU, obviously, which you already can use. You can spend 1 semester or even 1 year at that university and gain another degree. Like with the semester, it's not going to work. With 1 year, you can spend a year there and get their diploma, besides our diploma. And hopefully their students are going to come to Team University as well. It's like an exchange thing, and we for sure want to develop that. I hope in coming couple of months that's going to be officially announced at the university.
Thank you, Hikmat again. Do you guys have any other questions?
So thank you. My question is, what do you think? Is it a good idea to lend the money to start up your business? Because we touched the topic about lending. So
Yeah.
My question is,
What do you mean by what I think? Like, is it good or bad?
is
or?
it a good idea to lend money to start your business, or like start your business from your own pocket?
Oh, I see.
So for startuppers, if you are, let's say you are speaking from the shoes of the startupper, right? I mean, you want to have a startup and you want to attract some funding. For sure, it's a good idea to look for investment, yeah? I would definitely not encourage you to take any loans or credits, because at this moment, your startup is not going to have a predictable cash flow. Like, you won't have daily incoming money, and you cannot really predict, because any startupper cannot predict the cash flow he or she has in the coming year or 2. What you can do, and you should do, is to convince some other investors to invest into your business. And why you should do that? First of all, when you speak to more experienced investors, I mean, because they already have potentially heard many stories from other people, they can guide you, they will ask you right questions and help you to adjust and do the pivot, as they say, yeah? They will help you to adjust to the market and shape your business model. That's a very big thing you get from the investors. It's not just money, as they call it, it's a smart money. You get advice besides financing. So that's one very important thing you get. I mean, for sure you get money from investors, but you get advices and mentorship from them. Another very important thing is when you get connections with these people. Let me give you an example, so it's not just a theory. You know Zafar Hashimov, right? He's one of our co-founders. He's the founder of Korzinka. So, do you know My Taxi as a startup? Did you know that Zafar Hashimov is one of the co-founders of My Taxi? Some of you might have heard. Many of you probably would not even know. So that started from the point when Akmal Paiziv, you know Akmal Paiziv? Yeah, I'm giving some names. I hope you can Google them and follow them, because these are pretty much, let's say, bright minds of Uzbekistan. So Akmal Paiziv, when he was a young guy, maybe he was in his 20s, came to Zafar Hashimov with a proposal to invest into his projects. He was a graduate of university, already had some initial ideas, but he was not a successful business person. He was a young kid, like yourselves. And he spoke to Zafar and said, I have friends who are my course mates, and we want to start an IT business. Would you like to invest? And maybe he didn't invest immediately, but very soon he invested in few of his projects. These are Maxtrack, My Taxi, then Express24, yeah, who is now doing a wonderful exit to Yandex. Maybe you have heard or not. Yandex is buying Express24. So these projects would not be possible if Akmal would not reach out to a more experienced entrepreneur and said, would you like to invest into my companies? So that's what you get. And thanks to Zafar's wisdom, connections, obviously funding, these guys now are one of the most, these are the most successful tech entrepreneurs of Uzbekistan. The whole team who worked with Akmal, it's not just him, it's a cluster of people, yeah, who became very successful. And Akmal now is living in Silicon Valley. He moved to Silicon Valley and he's planning to establish into big international startups now. So that's what happens to you if you reach out to successful investors, and you obviously do a lot of things to become successful, but it's a partnership. Especially with you guys, I would definitely encourage you to use this opportunity to meet with our co-founders, to meet with entrepreneurs who come here for business breakfasts. They mentor. Do you know that there's a project called Launching a Venture at the year 4, yeah? Level 6 students. They have mentors like Laziz Adhamov, Muzaffar Kasimov. These are our founders.
Arsen Lenchev.
And Arsen Lenchev. They are coming and talking to students and mentoring them. That's what you definitely don't want to miss.
Thank you very much. And also, I guess it's very important to be able to pitch your project,
yeah,
in order to get this investment and the support of other entrepreneurs and investors. Any other questions? Yes,
Yeah.
Bakhtiar?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Hikmat, for your wonderful story. My name is Bakhtiar. I'm also a student of this team university. My question is somewhat related to his question, but in a different perspective. I myself has a small digital marketing agency, which we started very recently, and we have a small team. And we are kind of expecting to show ourselves to the bigger market of Uzbekistan and to become one of the successful digital marketing agencies. But we have some kind of issues to reaching out to the businesses. In this case, my personal question to you is, what kind of impact do you see networking in entrepreneurship? Networking is not just means tanışbılış, but it's more like having true close friends in your division to reach out to them in the most important part of your life and to establish very successful friendship. So I want to ask you how to establish a good networking with successful business owners like yourself.
Yeah.
You have very good friends in Uzbekistan. You do a lot of podcasts, Fikriye Takçıları, which is successful business entrepreneurs. My question is how to establish a good networking with successful business owners.
Yeah, thank you for this question, and I think it's important to realize how it works. Yeah. So, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 23.
23. Okay, so you are, at the age of, let's say, you are not the beginner, because I would say that if you are 16, 18, yeah, that's the initial stage of your life when you want to build some community, some affiliations. So at 23, you already can be more advanced, yeah, especially if you already have some practical experience. So I would describe, and I am 43, let's say, yeah. I don't want to sound, let's say, too arrogant or too, let's say, up of my nose, but I can say that I can reach out to pretty much all layers of people in Uzbekistan, yeah. At the age of 43, that's what you want to be, that's the place where you want to be, at my age. Maybe if you are great, if you are professional, if you are, if you have developed soft skills, maybe you can reach to this level, which I am at now, when you are 35. Maybe. I have some friends who are younger than me, who are in their mid-30s, already as successful, sometimes even more successful, and have maybe sometimes even stronger network in their 30s. There are not so many of them, I have to say, but there are few. What I want to say that now, imagine your life when you are 23, and let's say you have to establish a goal. When do you want to have that level of access as I have? Tell me, when do you want to have that? Next year? In 2 years? In 5 years? Yeah, you have to be realistic. If you say, I want to have the same level of exposure and network like you have in 2 years, I would say it's not realistic. Because you have to do a lot of things to be where I am, to build that, as they say, social capital, to build that reputation, to build that level of recognition by the society, yeah? And that's a long journey, I have to say. It's not an easy work. I had to go through many things in my life to be where I am, yeah? Both in terms of my international connections and in terms of my, let's say, national connections. Sometimes I think I have more international connections than local connections. And many people reach out to me through international connections and say, oh, I'm coming to Uzbekistan, and a lot of people told me that I have to meet you because I want to understand how business operates, how economy operates in your country, and people reach out to me from my international connections because I invested a lot of time into that. I am a member of different international communities. I am, paying my annual fees. Like there are some annual fees that I pay to be a member of some big organizations. I'll just give you one name. There is an international networking club which is called YPO, and I have to pay something like $6,000–7,000 every year just to be there. And that's my choice. I want to be there. I want to network with those people. And I feel that it gives back to me at a certain point. Sorry for giving you a long answer, but what I want to say is that you need to plan where you want to be in terms of your networking, in terms of people you can reach out to, and you need to understand that that takes time. What I can recommend you, start doing that now by building and creating your own community. If you are in a marketing agency, start a blog. Now it's very easy. Do some project that shows you as a professional, as a young professional. It might be a blog, it might be some Instagram channel, it might be TikTok, it might be email circulation, it might be physical meetings. It's completely up to you. I'll give you one example from your industry of a guy who actually is doing pretty well to build his recognition. His name is Dima Seredin. I think you were planning some of you were planning to reach out to him. So Dima founded this college, what's the name? Technicum College. I remember that guy when he was not a kid, but he was just a junior, like it was 10 years ago. And his partner used to work for me. And I remember him and his partner trying to do some interesting things 10 years ago. And he's still young. How old is he? Maybe he is 30, 32? Like he's still relatively young. But now already he can invite to his podcasts. I would not say maybe everyone he wants, but pretty much he built a recognition and now people want to be on his podcast. Yeah? And that's an interesting moment, like a milestone where you reach out to people and you want to drag them to be your podcast guests. And then there's a moment where they want to be your postcard guest, yeah? And that's where you can say, okay, now I am already a recognized professional. Same thing with Fikriyat Akçıları, Opinion Leaders, the project. When we started that project, we already had a serious recognition in the country. And we didn't have any problems to invite anyone who we wanted to be our guest. That's why we could select. And people are ready now. We receive proposals. People say, can I pay you $5,000 to be on our podcast? And we say, no. We say, we don't accept because of the price check. We only accept people who we think is valuable, interesting for our subscribers. So yeah, that's the answer. Start building your own reputation Don't wait until, you cannot do that jump. You cannot do that leapfrog. Very rarely you can do that. Normally it's step by step by step, and it takes you 5 years, 10 years, but you can be there if you want to.
Thank you very much, Hikmat. So if you remember, we talked about the mindset, right? The fixed and growth mindset. So if you want something really bad, you will achieve it. You're going to achieve it, yes? So thank you very much, Hikmat, for this useful session for our students. I guess they have their own conclusions and takeaways. Yeah, so thank you very much. Let's...
Yeah. So I'm going to be here for another 5-10 minutes. If you want to talk to me, one thing, just Elena, if you don't mind, as an advice, and we do that to train your muscles, so to say. This was a breakfast session, yeah, like a, how do we call it, business breakfast session. And I was observing that none of you went and took a coffee or tea or ate something because you were shy, and that's totally okay. Okay, one of you got a bottle. That's a great achievement. But what I want to say is that this is a safe setting, this is a safe environment. You are students of this university, so you have all the rights to feel confident at this place. So we will do, I hope we will do more business breakfasts like this, and try to be confident. Go out and take whatever you want to eat. I'm sure it's not going to hurt you. And do the mingling, do the chat among yourselves with the speaker. And I was watching if some of you will come to me and introduce yourself. Talk to me, do the small talk. None of you did, which was not forbidden, yeah? Which was very open session. What I want to say is that use this opportunity as a training, because when you go out, you need to do a lot of these things. If you want to be successful, you have to do that every day, every morning, every evening. I go to receptions, I go to events, and I do that. That became just part of me, going and taking a glass of wine or taking a cookie, chatting to people whom I never met. That's what we do for the networking. And not all the universities provide this training. So you have to train your body not to feel shy, because initially you will be, maybe you will have resistance from your body, you will be scared to do that, but trust me, it's a safe environment, and that's where you can train to do that. And in 3 years' time, in 4 years' time, you will be much more flexible and much more confident in doing that. While others, graduates of other universities didn't have that opportunity. When they saw the rector, they were frightened. When you see the CEO of this organization, you should be comfortable. You should not be afraid to reach out. And that's the biggest lesson that I hope that Business Breakfast will teach you.
Definitely, Hikmat. Thank you very much again. Thank you, guys. Thank you.